Hey everyone, how's it going? Azren, the language nerd here. Hope you're doing very, very well on this fine Friday afternoon or whatever day and time it is for you right now as you're watching this video here. Welcome to another episode of Azren's Journal. This is episode number 74. If you're new to this segment on my YouTube channel, this is the part on my channel where I share my personal language learning journey and of course give you guys a whole bunch of different language learning tips. Now, today we're going to do something slightly different. I've done it once or twice before, but I don't do it often. I'm going to record a podcast at the same time as we record this video here. The message and the content that I'd like to cover today is quite applicable to both the podcast and to the YouTube channel. And so I thought we could do both. I'll record a podcast and I will also record this on YouTube. So bear with me for like 20 seconds as I do the podcast introduction. And then we're going to dive in like usual. So here we go. Hey everyone, how's it going? Azren, the language nerd here, owner of the Calgary Language Nerds, and welcome to another podcast episode. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday afternoon or whatever day and time it is for you right now as you're listening to this episode here. If you want to learn more about me, podcast people, you can visit my website, azrenthelanguagenerd.com. That is spelled A-Z-R-E-N, thelanguagenerd.com. Or of course, you could visit any of my social networks, which is at Polyglot Azren. That is spelled P-O-L-Y-G-L-O-T-A-Z or Z, depending on your country, R-E-N. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, and of course on Twitter. And with that aside, let's dive into our podcast episode. I'm super excited to be here. And today we're joined by the YouTube people. There's actually I'm actually recording this on YouTube as well at the same time because podcast people and YouTube people as well. I'd like to talk about some things which I believe to be incredibly important. I think we're going to dive into some language learning topics, but the first things I'd like to start with have nothing to do with language learning, nothing at all. But I think it's very, very crucially ever so important. And it has to do with gratitude. Guys, it's funny. I was watching a video yesterday. It was a video and a podcast. It was a podcast that was recorded on YouTube. And this is the podcast with a fellow by the name of Jordan Peterson. Now, many of you may already know who he is. He's quite a well-known individual. And feel free to look him up if you don't know who he is, Jordan Peterson. And the podcast that he was on was with his daughter. And they were talking about various health complications he has had recently. They were talking about various challenges in his life. His wife had a form of cancer, and the cancer is supposed to be something that was quite treatable. But after the initial procedure that they did at the hospital, they realized after that procedure that it was actually a terminal cancer, a cancer that basically had a very, very close to 100% fatality rate. Around the same time, his daughter was getting some very invasive surgery herself. And it was a very, very stressful point, very, very stressful time in his life. At that time, he's talking about how he was taking some prescription medication at the prescribed amounts, but those had some incredibly adverse and absolutely terrible consequences for his health. He talks about them in his podcast and what happened when he was on these prescribed medications and what the results were. And when he stopped taking them, what happened. And it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Even as they were recording that podcast, he's still not out of the woods in terms of the health complications that he's been having. There's still lots of things going on. And he's still undergoing a lot of procedures and he's still undergoing a lot. And he's been going through a lot for the past year. It's a really tough podcast to watch. I'll be honest with you. Very, very difficult video to watch. You can see when you hear the stories, it hits you deep in your heart, in your soul. It hits you deep down and you're like, wow, that sounds really awful. And what it made me realize a few things. The first thing it made me realize is every single one of us, based on our life experiences, has a different scale of what is good in terms of, let me rephrase that. We have a different scale and different notion of what is difficulty and hardship and adversity and challenge and what isn't. We all have a very different definition of what that is. Someone who has grown up, for instance, in extreme poverty, living on the streets, abusive household, maybe hungry, not very much food in the fridge, things of that nature. If you've grown up in that environment, you have a very different relationship with adversity and definition of adversity than somebody who was born into a very nice family, who has money, right? And you're able to go to good schools, and you're able to have, for lack of a better term, a good, comfortable kind of life. So your relationship with adversity and challenge and what is hard is quite different. And that's what brings me to gratitude. That's what kind of brings me to the whole topic of this video / podcast. When you are unaware of the types of challenges that many people face across the planet, it's difficult to be grateful for the things that you really have. There's been multiple videos that I've watched or content that I've seen in my life or experiences that I've had in my life as well, not just online content, even just personal experiences that really make me grateful for the things I have. Because when we hear that story that Jordan Peterson went through, for example, when I was listening to that, I realized, man, that could happen to anyone. That could have happened to me. Like, that could have happened. That could be me. Hell, it could even happen to me in the future, something like that. We all face hardship in our lives, and it's important, I think, to be grateful for the things that we have. And I'll be honest, in my perspective, I think it's important for all of us to, and I'm including myself in this, to continuously understand what other people are going through, both people that have easier lives and harder lives, both, right? I think is important. Because when you hear stories such as what Jordan Peterson went through, it really hits you and you go, wow, I need to be more grateful. I need to do X, Y, Z things in order for me to have a better life or feel happier or to be a better human being, etc. When you watch those kinds of things and you consume those kinds of things and you realize that exists, it has a deep impact on your life and on the actions and the way you live your life. I think so. I really think so. I had another moment like that recently, maybe 3 months ago, maybe something like that, 2-3 months ago, listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, where he had Kevin Hart as a guest. And Kevin was talking about how he had broken his back, right? His back was broken. It broke. And he was talking about his recovery process and how he recovered. Now he's 90, according to him there, he's 98% to how he used to be. And apparently one of the only reasons he was able to recover after a broken back, after that accident, was due to, well, what the doctor said, one of the big reasons was how fit and how good shape he was in. When I heard that, I was like, good Lord, if I had gone through a broken back, that experience, I don't think I would have recovered the same way, because I'm not in that kind of excellent physical shape. I'm not in that kind of shape. And that made me realize, wow, I think I need to get in better shape. And so on and on. When you hear about the adversity that other people have gone through or are currently going through, when you really hear about it and you really let it sink in, you always learn something from it, whether it's gratitude, whether it's things in your life you have to change, whether it really opens your eyes. And in fact, really hearing about and being able to relate to the adversity of others and the challenging things that others are going through. The only thing that's better than that, rather, the only thing you can learn from even more than that, even faster, is if the adversity happens to you, if you personally go through it. I almost feel like there's 3 levels. Level 1, that the most shallow level, which can still hit you quite deep, by the way, is where you hear about someone who goes through XYZ experience. I think the next level down would be if you personally know someone, or you personally have to see someone go through that. You're not the one going through it, but you see someone going through it. In fact, that might even be harder than you personally going through it, depending on the situation. And then I think the deepest level would be perhaps if you are going through it yourself. right? And you're not seeing someone, but you're actually going through it. And I think, yeah, it's important for us to have a relationship with that kind of adversity and understand what adversity others have gone through, how they went through it, what the results were. Like literally, it blows my mind to think about this. You have to go listen to that podcast. If you Google or YouTube Joe Rogan not Joe Rogan, sorry, Jordan Peterson. Let me actually find the exact podcast name for you. And by the way, whether or not you agree with Joe Rogan's views, that's moot. That's not relevant here. The story in this is ridiculous. The story of the podcast. Let me just Google it here or search on YouTube. So it's Jordan Peterson. Let me just Google it here. Family update. Yeah, here we go. I found it. So basically, I'll just spell it out for everybody here. It's called the Mikhaila Peterson Podcast number 9. Mikhaila is spelled Mikhaila. So Mikhaila, essentially. The Mikhaila Peterson Podcast number 9. And the title is Jordan B. Peterson Family Update, June 2020. It's crazy. Like one of the things that they talked about, what she was talking about is something called, I believe, aphasia. I believe it's called aphasia. I might be misremembering that. But they're talking about how people go through the experience of having this, often for, months. I think they even said potentially a year, more than a year on end. And the way he described it was someone taking like a cattle, what are those cattle branding irons, right? Like someone taking a cattle branding iron and just hitting you with it and poking you with it. And you cannot sit, you cannot lay down. The only thing you can do is move and walk and be constantly moving. But it doesn't help and you don't get any relief. You just cannot, that's all you can do. Walk, move as you're hit with this invisible cattle branding iron. And it can go on for months, weeks. Could you imagine that? Imagine, like, that's terrible. I've seen something very similar firsthand. I don't know if this is what the individual had, but someone that I know had that experience after taking some medications. The dosage, I believe the meds was wrong or the dosage was wrong. It was one of the two. And he had to walk at all times and he was restless and he could not sit. He's moving and walking and had to drink water, had to drink coffee. Oh, I don't want coffee anymore. And I want to do this. Oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Let's go to so-and-so's house. Get to their house. I don't want to be here anymore. Like it was, yeah. Makes you realize how important your health is, makes you realize what's important, makes you realize what the true priorities are. The ironic thing yesterday, the contrast was huge. Here I am, I'm watching this video. I swipe away from the video on my phone and there's a comedy video, right? Directly recommended, not recommended, but on my home screen on my YouTube, a comedy video. And it was such a huge contrast that when you are healthy, when things are generally good, you focus on different things. And when things are not good in your life, you focus on different things. Like there's different things you focus on depending on how things are going in your life. And ultimately, maybe this isn't true. Maybe this is just how I feel as of today. But when our backs are up against the wall, the things that matter when our backs are up against the wall, those are really the things that matter when our backs are not up against the wall. And when our backs are not up against the wall, we start to focus on things that don't matter as much because we need meaning, we need purpose, we need something to think about, something to do in life. That's how life is. If we have nothing to focus on, we die, whether literally speaking or just mentally speaking. You get lethargic and you don't know what to focus on, and you don't have goals, and the human mind needs things to focus on. And so when our backs are pressed up against the wall, life tells us what's important. When you're going through whatever sickness, health is what matters and you focus on the health. When you have knee pain and it's excruciating knee pain in your knee, that's what you have to focus on. When you have a death in the family, you know that's you're given a purpose to focus on. Your life gives it to you. When everything is generally good, you have to pick your own purposes. You have to pick your own things. And the thing is, when things are good, so we start to pick things like career, success, money. We get frustrated over the dumb fight we had with our friend. We get mad that they put the wrong milk in our Starbucks coffee, because we're looking for those meanings, and we're looking for things that are both bad and good. We're looking for those things. We're looking for the meaning, and meaning comes from hardship and good things. That's where our meaning comes from. And when things are all good, we look for, we still need to have meaning. We still need to have both positive things, negative things, challenges. We still need that. And we get tricked into thinking that those things that are giving us meaning when things are good are the things that really matter, but they're not. And so in my opinion, I've actually believed this for a long time, but it's really front of mind today. In my opinion, what we have to do is when things are good in our lives, which hopefully, knock on wood, right? Knock on wood, things are good for more time than things are bad, hopefully. But when things are doing okay and nothing terrible's going on, and by the way, we should specify this. When you are not going through when you're not going through a situation that, how do I phrase this? When you're not going through a situation that is ridiculously difficult, extreme difficulty, death, sickness, physical pain, something really excruciatingly wrong with your health. Maybe those are the only real things. Maybe it's like anything that, I need to define. I don't know how to define it, what extreme difficulty is. We need like a definition for it. I don't have one. My hypothesis of today as a definition is something that directly affects your basic human needs, right? Your basic human need, like we need a shelter, right? Now you don't need a house. Your shelter could be something very small. Food, right? Enough food to not die. Water, your health, family, because when family dies, when you don't have a family, a social structure around you, that's bad. Well, human beings need a family, whether it's biological family or family found through friends and through other people. We need community. Maybe community is the right word for it, right? When those core things are not safety, right? When those core things are not threatened, everything else doesn't actually matter. And yes, you will get stressed. Yes, other things will make you happy. Yes, you want to succeed in your career. Like me, right? Really, I want to have success with the Calgary language nerds and things like that. But you have to always remember, those aren't the things that really matter. The stuff that actually matters is the stuff that you're just not thinking about because everything's fine, right? And be grateful that you have that situation. Be grateful that you're in that spot because it's temporary. It's temporary. Everybody goes through tragedy, hardship, heartbreak, health scares, all of us, everyone at some point, most of us, maybe you're lucky, but even then you're gonna get old, someone's gonna die, right, in your life. That's gonna happen. So, whoa, this desktop is turned on. You know that's going to happen. And because you know that's going to happen, you have to squeeze the moments where it hasn't happened and be grateful. And when it happens, you have to deal with it, right? You have to deal with it. I haven't had anything crazy. I mean, I've had one or two things. I've had one or two things happen that felt really big, and they were really big. I think I don't really feel like sharing them, but I've had one that really comes to mind, two that was smaller, but one, I have a couple of, things I can say, but that were bad, that were really tough, really, really hard. But I'll be honest with you, and here's the crazy thing, even when you go through something, things I'm thinking of are scary and hard, even those hard things, you can in comparison, someone's already faced something harder than you. Someone has, right? I watched this podcast of a guy who was kidnapped into slavery, and then he got out. Years of slavery, like on a boat. He was kidnapped by a pirate, and he was on a boat, and he was a slave on a boat for, I don't remember how long it was. Years, I think. Years they were trying to get him out. Years. Think about that. Slavery. Ugh. Recently, not even like 2000 something. Ugh. Like, Could you imagine? Oh my God. Could you imagine that? Or like, oh, just, Jordan Peterson was able to get his health things figured out. Go listen to the podcast. It's nuts. He was able to get his health things figured out. Well, he's still figuring it out, but he flew to different cities and different places. They ended up going to Russia for treatment. Russia. But he has the means to do so. What if you weren't Jordan Peterson and you were like Joe Schlomo, who just had an average job and just kind of lived a middle-class lifestyle? Or what if you didn't even have a middle-class lifestyle? What if you were just poor? What the hell would you do then? Now you're stuck with the cattle branding iron across your body for the rest of your life until you die, or you turn to really hard meds to deal with it. And now you become a drug addict because, could you imagine? Ugh. Seriously, we're so lucky, that we're not going through that. Honestly. When I see people complain about really legitimately complain, not complain oh, my boss did this, whatever, but legitimately complain. And even in those, to be honest, oh, my boss did this, even those complaints, I'll be honest, sometimes I think it's an indication that the person has not seen or experienced a heavy amount of hardship. They just haven't seen it. I'll never forget when I met someone who hadn't seen their own damn reflection. They'd lived on the streets, met multiple people I've actually met this way, live on the streets. They stay on their own little street corner. That's where they're born. They were raised. They've lived on the streets their whole lives. And we met a 40-year-old lady, 50-year-old lady who had never seen her own reflection because she doesn't go to the bathroom. In the bathroom, she goes on the street corner. Or she went to this little hole in the ground. She never went into stores to buy, never went to clothing stores to try on clothes that way. It's not what she done. That's not how she just got clothes, and if they kind of fit. And you're great. She'd never seen her own face. Saw some children, same thing. It was in Africa. That was in Africa. Children who never seen themselves before, right? Until we took a picture and we showed the picture, whoa, that look. And they hadn't seen themselves. I remember seeing, there's a time in Morocco. We were, I don't know, but it felt like we were this close to becoming just slaves, I don't know if it's human trafficking or what it is. We were this close. We were scammed into going to following this guy. Basically, long story short, we were scammed into doing this tour and going to this market. We were scammed into it, and the guy took us to this area where they prepare meats to turn the meat into leather. That's where we were taken to. This area, they prep meats to turn into leather, which then you wear in clothes, right? Now, this area where we went to, basically what they had is they had people, brown people, by the way, many of them, most of them, all of them, like my skin color. They are in these pits that are, I would have to say, quadruple my height, 4 times my height. They're in pits right? And these pits are filled, maybe up until my belly, up where my chest even. They're filled with some sort of ammonia. Is it ammonia? Is that an acid? Is ammonia an acid? Is ammonia an acid or is it a base? Ammonium or ammonia? Ammonium? Hang on. Ammonium. What is that acid called? It's something they use to they're treating some kind of chemical. I don't remember what it is anymore. It stunk. That chemical smelled. And there's the smell of the meats as well, the hide, the animal hide. And the people are in these pits working, taking these hides and moving them through and massaging them and rubbing them through this water, this chemical. And the people are in the chemical, by the way. They're standing in it. They're soaked in it. I don't know what the chemical was. I think it was, they told us. I don't remember what it was. And I was like, what? And we're literally beside the pit. I'm here. The pit's here, right here. And I'm like, and it did not feel safe. It did not feel safe. They ended up robbing us. Actually, we were robbed. They stole from us. They took they took some of our money, and luckily, it's a long story. I don't want to go into the whole story, but we were robbed, and I was standing there thinking, this man right now could push me, and I could be pushed into the pit right now, and my life has changed. And I was like looking at all those people. I was like, this could be a scam to get those people in the pits. That could have been some brown. They look for brown tourists that look like they're potentially Moroccan, because apparently I look Moroccan from when I was there. People thought I was Moroccan. And they look for them, and they shove them into pits, and now off you go to work. Nothing you can do. Nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do. You couldn't do it. You'd be that'd be your life. That would become your life. No one would know where you are. No one could rescue you. No one would come to you. That would be it. I'd be I was 25-ish at the time, 24, 25. 25 good years, and then I'd have life of slavery. When you go through that and you have that experience, and that's, by the way, I mentioned earlier, there's a couple really tough experiences. That doesn't even qualify. That's like, that not scarred by it, whatever. I don't even think about it. Never think about it. It's fine. Because I've been through harder things than that, right? When you go through things like that, suddenly when your boss is a dick, it doesn't bother you. You're like, whatever. It could be worse. I could be in an ammonia pit right now working through freaking hides. I have a job. Great, right? When, it's just, it's important to have a relation. I think it's important. It actually scares me to say it, because no one likes adversity. I don't like adversity. I hate it. We all hate it. But as fearful as it makes me, I wonder if it's important for all of us to go through adversity and make it through adversity. I think so. Like really hard shit that we don't want to deal with. Like, I think so. I think that really matters. Stuff we don't want to. Like, you get your foot cut off. Now what? You go blind. Now what? House burns down in a fire. You lose your dogs, your cats, and your whole family. Now what? Like we don't, hopefully that stuff doesn't happen. I don't think everyone you need to, but like, that's terrible. But like, adversity, I think, is really, going through adversity, super important. I think so. It scares me to say it, because I don't even like thinking about that stuff. I'm feeling the sadness inside, like, oh, my house burned down. Like, house can burn down. Who cares? Moving my grandparents, I don't care. Like you live in like a tiny house. We found, like, house can be replaced, like laptop can be replaced, phone can be replaced, like stuff's fine, but like still, like even as I said it, anyone whose house, like, it's funny. Let's talk about this. Let's go really meta, then we'll finish. I just said house burned down, and I was like, whatever, house burned down. I think a lot of people listening and watching, if someone said your house burned down, they wouldn't go, whatever, house burned down. That wouldn't be your reaction. And I think the only reason to have that reaction is when you really have context as to what bad is. What really does bad qualify as? What does bad really mean? We think bad means house burned down, which is bad. But on what level of bad is it? Do you have context on what things could be like, right? And even me, I don't think I have full context either. I have a very privileged life. Good family, loving mother, sister, good health. I have privilege too. Like, Lord, I don't even really know adversity. Good. Like, I don't know it. I really don't. And that, I think about that. I really think about that sometimes. But, I strive. I don't know if I strive to have adversity. I don't really strive to have adversity. That's just not true. But anyway, that's enough for today. That's a 30-minute rant. So nothing to do with languages. I thought we'd get to languages. We didn't. But that's what's on my mind today. See you, everyone. Hope it gives you some food for thought. See you.